All right, so we were assigned the task of finding milestones between 1858 and 1885. Okay, so I'm Ryan, and this is
Yida.
Yida, and we had the privilege of working with Bruce Macdonald. We have his book up there because he was very helpful in doing this project. I think what was cool about working with Bruce is a lot of the literature we read was kind of based from a non-native perspective, and we were looking for that native perspective to kind of tie it together. So it's nice to kind of have his input on that side of the story.
Yeah, so your begins in 1858.
We'll just go back for a sec. So yeah, I just want to, I guess the last group had the same image, but we just want to show you kind of how things looked in 1858. Kind of notice all the native settlements, because later on in the presentation I'm going to show how the landscape changed in like 25 years. So just to kind of give you a demonstration of what things look like.
And this is an overview of some of the milestones we have from the early 1850s.
So yeah, we have 8 milestones. The titles are just kind of up there just for show. We're going to get to that in a second. I think from these slides, what I want you to take from them is the images, kind of give a representation of what was going on. Like in 1858, gold, 1860s when the British arrived, 1863, the timber, 1865, the telegram. 1869 was kind of like musqueam issues. 1870 to 1881, how the Granville town site changed, and then finally 1885, end of our era with the CPR railroad. And then yeah, that's just the other 4. So we had 8 total.
Yeah, so I'll begin with the first milestone. And 1858 was really the year when the dominant influence of First Nations came to an end. Because of the land in mainland British Columbia, it became a crown colony. And people were mostly attracted to coming here, not because of just discovery or for scientific reasons, but because they wanted to get rich from the resources. So the prospect of striking it rich became the first incentive for large numbers of non-native people to pass through the Vancouver region for the first time. And the presence of the gold along the Fraser was announced to the general public that year in the spring of 1858 in San Francisco. And along the way, a lot of the miners, they spent time in Victoria and San Francisco. And as a result, Victoria temporarily grew to the biggest city in BC with a population of 5,000. And the non-native population growth and development increased rapidly during the successive races for resource extraction in BC. The new colony also came with a new British administration system and their civil and criminal law that began to be enforced in the area. And at the same time, many non-British groups, such as the Native and Chinese workers, they were excluded from citizenship, while the British immigrants, they brought their own ideas back home of progress, private property, and the belief in their own general superiority for their British civilization.
All right, so our next milestone takes us to 1860. As Yida mentioned, people came for the gold, but by 1860 the gold was depleted. It was kind of a short-lived gold rush. So basically the people coming thought, hey, how can we make money? And then they realized, hey, there's some of the best Douglas fir in all the area, so we can make money off this. So the Royal Engineers under Colonel Moody said, okay, we're going to survey the land, we're going to set up these unclaimed public lands, and we're not here for military. So they ended up actually setting up military reserves from New Westminster to Jericho Beach, and on where Stanley Park presently is in Broad Street. Okay, so as I kind of alluded to with the timber rush, so really what happened was you had all this timber that was easily accessible, because like who was going to tell them what to do? Like the First Nations, they thought, okay, well the First Nations aren't going to tell us what to do, so we can make a lot of money from this timber rush. So what it was a few non-natives, like Moody, not Colonel Moody, another Moody, and Stamp, who opened up their mills and started cutting down the timber and then exporting it outside of Vancouver's port, which at the time was one of the greatest ports in the world on the Broad Inlet. And then yeah, I just have an image to just give some context to where the Hastings sawmill was. So that's Gastown. Here's Stanley Park. So if you can kind of visualize where that mill was set up at the time.
And 1865 is an important year because it was when rapid communications came to the region for the first time. And so in 1865, telegraph lines connected the remote Pacific region of Greater Vancouver to the outside world for the first time. So prior to telegraph lines in the region, news traveled very slowly through ship, and the long distances through difficult terrain was very discouraging for mass settlement. And so that year, a link was actually built to New Westminster from California with the American telegraph system, and a link to Europe, to Britain, was made the year after with the first transatlantic cable. And so the improvement in communications technology ensured that businesses could run far more efficiently, and more immigrants are able to arrive in the Greater Vancouver region without losing contact with their home countries. And afterwards, in 1869, it was when the reservation system was created, and the First Nations were confined to their reserve lands. So the Musqueam and Squamish First Nations in what is now Vancouver were given small Indian reserves that were transferred to the authority of the federal government after BC joined Canada. So this resulted in actual reinforced segregation by the government Indian agents in accordance with various attempts to make natives become more European or Canadian-like. And racism was actually a significant factor in creating the land reserves, and as well as in the various ways they were treated afterwards. In terms of urban development, the reserves will ensure that future urban growth in Greater Vancouver for town sites such as Granville and New Westminster could be done unhindered by the interests of the First Nations.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, like they were making a lot of money off the timber. So after colonizing the land, we thought, okay, let's make some money off the land. So in 1870, actually just 3 lots were sold. And this was in Gastown, which was originally named Granville, but it was actually renamed Gastown in 1870. And at the time, it was just one mill, one hotel, and three saloons at the time. And the hotel was owned by, or created by a man named Gassy Jack Dayton, who came from Britain, I believe, and he was actually just a squatter on the land. And he got the nickname Gassy Jack Dayton because many believe that Gastown kind of developed after he built this hotel. So yeah, at the time it was a 6-block town site. And I have up there, downtown Vancouver was officially recognized. So some say that that's when Vancouver, Vancouver was officially made a city in 1885, but some say that that's when the city kind of was recognized as Vancouver. So it's pretty interesting. Before 1858, there wasn't a single non-native person living there. It was basically, Vancouver was a big forest, and then you had your first people settling in Vancouver. And by 1881, they were conducting censuses by then, and the census actually showed that there was more non-native people than native people living in the Greater Vancouver region. And it's kind of interesting that they're kind of underappreciated, almost like non-native people came and they took over, and it's almost like native people didn't really have anything to offer, when in fact that was completely untrue. They had lived and thrived there for 10,000 years, and the experience and the knowledge that they had gained from that really long habitation kind of facilitated the lifestyle of the non-native people. So sometimes, like Bruce was telling me, that native people are depicted in images really, just with spears, really primitive. That's what I'm looking for. But in fact, they're really innovative. So I think it's kind of unfair that they're painted in that way.
And finally, 1885 is an important year. For many years, rail transportation was only the real viable way for passenger transportation, and it was part of the promise of Canada for BC to have a railway. As one of its conditions for joining Confederation in 1871. So having a seafarer announce that the railway will be coming to Vancouver was really a catalyst that changed the city forever because it led to giant rapid growth. For instance, in late 1885, there were about 100 buildings, and which exploded to almost 1,000. So this is really the beginning of Vancouver becoming one of the major port cities in the world. And it was a decision that was made with Van Horn, because he compared Port Moody and also Vancouver in the area. And it soon became clear that Vancouver was only the real viable place for a port, as it had one of the finest natural harbors in the area.
Yeah, just kind of what I was alluding to before. I just wanted to show, I think these maps these are from Bruce's book, Visual History. They're a little bit before 1885, but I just wanted to, as I was mentioning before, show how things have really changed. So you can see in the yellow now, instead of native settlements, we have white settlements, and then you can just go to the last side. And then just side by side, I think it gives a nice visual demonstration of how things can change a lot in like 25 years. So that's just how I wanted to finish off the presentation.